Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I'd like to welcome you to another special series on the Compliance Podcast Network of Adventures in Compliance. Over the next 5 podcast episodes, we're going to take a look at stories from the Casebook of Sherlock Holmes and what they can tell us and inform us about both leadership and your compliance program. We will consider the Three Garridebs, the problem of Thor Bridge, the Creeping Man, the Lion's Mane. We'll conclude with the Veiled Lodger. I know you will find them illuminating, and as an aficionado of Sherlock Holmes, it's a lot of fun. Adventures in Compliance is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. Adventures in Compliance, the Three Garridebs, and Objective Discipline. We're back to consider the intersection of Sherlock Holmes and compliance through the stories from the Casebook of Sherlock Holmes, mining each story for themes and lessons related to the compliance profession, business leadership, and business ethics. In today's episode, we consider the Three Garridebs. From the story, it demonstrates the need for objective discipline in a variety of areas in any best practices compliance program. In this story, Holmes receives a letter from a Nathan Garrideb asking for help in a most peculiar quest. He's looking for another man with an unusual name, which will mean a $5 million inheritance for him. He is approached by a second man, John Garrideb of Kansas, who says he needs to find others with the same last name. The American Garrideb comes to see Holmes and Watson at 221B Baker Street and is apparently not pleased that Nathan Garrideb has involved the great detective. Nathan Garrideb claims to be a lawyer and spins a ridiculous story about an Alexander Hamilton Garrideb, a millionaire land tycoon in Kansas. Hamilton Garrideb allegedly bequeathed a $15 million estate to John Garrideb on the provision that he find 2 more Garridebs with which to share it equally. He comes to England to seek out people with the last name, having failed to find any in America. So far, he has only found Nathan. During the interview, Holmes detects many discrepancies in John Garrideb's story, ranging from the time he spent in London, being obviously longer than he claims, and his knowledge of the completely fictitious mayor of the town where Garrideb claims to have lived before coming to England. But Holmes decides not to confront him. This piques Holmes' interest, and he decides to contact Nathan Garrideb to investigate further. It turns out that Nathan Garrideb is an elderly eccentric who collects everything from ancient coins to old bones. Garrideb's room looks like a small museum. He is obviously a serious collector, but has nothing of great value in the collection. Holmes finds out that John Garrideb has never asked for money, nor has he suggested any course of action. Nathan Garrideb has no reason, it seems, to be suspicious of John Garrideb. During Holmes and Watson's visit, John Garrideb arrives in a most jolly mood. He has apparently found a third Garrideb, as proof of which he shows a newspaper advertisement purportedly placed by a Howard Garrideb in the course of everyday business. Holmes sees instantly that John Garrideb has placed the advertisement himself from various Americanisms in the spelling and wording of the advertisement. John Garrideb insists that Nathan go to Birmingham to meet this Howard Garrideb, and it has now become clear that what Holmes calls the rigmarole of lies, is all about. John Garrideb wants Nathan Garrideb out of the room for a while. The next day brings fresh information. Holmes has gone to see Inspector Lestrade at Scotland Yard and identifies John Garrideb as James Winters, alias Moore Croft, alias Killer Evans, who escaped prison after shooting 3 men in the United States. In London, he killed Roger Prescott, a former Chicago forger whose description matches that of a former occupant of Nathan Garrideb's room. Holmes and Watson go to Garrideb's home with revolvers. They don't have to wait long before Winter shows up. From their hiding place, Holmes and Watson see the criminal use a jimmy to open the trapdoor, revealing a small cellar. They capture Winter before he manages to shoot twice, striking Watson in the leg. For once Holmes shows his human side, he is distraught over Watson's injury and strikes Winter over the head with the butt of a gun hard enough to draw blood, vowing that the villain would never have left the rooms alive if he had killed Watson. Fortunately, Watson's wound is superficial. The discoveries include printing presses and plates, which caused several Scotland Yard men to sleep more soundly. However, the English judiciary took a less favorable view of the crime, and Winter was sent back to prison for a lengthy This story informs today's themes of using human resources to operationalize your compliance program through discipline that is handed out fairly across your organization, and to reward those employees who integrate such ethical and compliant behavior into their individual work practices. In addition to providing a financial incentive for ethical behavior, it also provides a sense of institutional objectivity. Institutional objectivity comes from procedural fairness and is one of the things that will bring credibility to your compliance program. It is yet another way to more fully operationalize your compliance program. That objectivity is called the fair process doctrine, and it recognizes that there are fair procedures, not arbitrary ones, in the process involving rights, most particularly individual employment rights. Considerable research has shown that people are more willing to accept negative, unfavorable, non-preferred outcomes when they arrive by the process and procedures they perceive as fair. As you incorporate the fair process doctrine into your compliance program, there are three key areas to focus on. Number one, the administration of discipline. One area where the fair process doctrine is paramount is in the administration of discipline. After any compliance-related incident, discipline must not only be administered fairly, but it must be administered uniformly across the company for violation of any company policies. Quite simply, if you're going to fire employees in South America for lying on their expense reports, you have to fire them in North America for the same offense. It cannot matter that the North American employee is a friend or a so-called high producer. Failure to administer discipline uniformly will destroy any vestige of credibility that may have developed for your compliance program. Employee promotions. In addition to the area of discipline, which may be administered at the completion of any compliance investigation, you must place compliance firmly as a part of the ongoing employee evaluation and promotion. If your company is seen to advance and reward only employees who achieve their numbers by whatever means necessary, other employees will certainly take note, and that will be understood what management evaluates and rewards employees on. Consider the often heard tale about a regional manager outside the United States who is alleged to have said the following: "If I violate the code of conduct, I may or may not get caught. If I am caught, I may or may not be disciplined. If I miss my numbers for 2 quarters, I will be fired." If that is what employees believe about how you are evaluated, the basis for your promotion, you cannot win the compliance battle until this mindset is addressed. Internal investigations. The third area that the fair process doctrine is around is internal investigations. If your employees do not believe that the investigation is fair and impartial, then it is not fair and impartial. Further, those involved must have confidence that any internal investigation is treated seriously and objectively. One of the key reasons that employees go outside of their company's internal hotline process is because they do not believe that the investigation is fair. Fairness has several components. One must be the use of outside counsel rather than in-house counsel to handle the investigation. Moreover, if the company regularly uses one firm, it may be that another firm should be brought in, particularly if the regular outside counsel has created or implemented key components that are being investigated. Further, if a company's outside counsel has a large amount of business with the company, then the law firm may have a very vested interest in maintaining the status quo. Lastly, the investigation may require a level of specialization in which the in-house or regular outside counsel does not possess. An often overlooked role of any chief compliance officer or compliance professional is to help provide employees with procedural fairness. If your compliance function is seen to be fair in the way it treats people, in areas as varied as financial incentives to promotions to uniform discipline meted out across the globe, employees are more likely to inform the compliance department when something goes awry. If the employees believe they are being treated fairly, it will go a long way towards operationalizing your compliance program. I hope you'll join us tomorrow where we consider the problem of Thor Bridge. For listening to this episode of Adventures in Compliance. If you have any questions on anything I've talked about, please feel free to contact me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. Adventures in Compliance has been a special presentation of the Compliance Podcast Network.